Yo, what's up? It's your boy E. So, let's talk about combo shortcuts. Let's get it. Haha! Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you are new here, I'm E and I create MTG content and budget streaming content. So, what are combo shortcuts? I'm creating this segment so that I can help you, my fellow combo players, to think about the gameplay more and less about how to combo off. This is one of the techniques that I use when I play in tournaments using combo decks, that I memorize my combo permutations / sequence so that I can free my mind to think about what my opponent will do against that sequence and how I'm going to respond or react. Plan B, per se. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the focus deck today. Amulet Titan. Now, if you follow me on my stream or the gram, you would see my deck list of my winning deck. Last tournament that is done on Top Deck League right here. That's right, your boy was the champ. And this is the deck that I brought. What is Amulet Titan? Amulet Titan, in the namesake, Amulet of Vigor and Primeval Titan, the aim of the deck is to cast Primeval Titan as early as turn 2, as late as turn 4, and consistently in turn 3. And it wins via damage, be it combat or non-combat damage. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's look at the deck composition. The deck composition is subdivided into 5 major types, 2 of which is your namesake, the Amulet of Vigor, and the Primeval Titan. The other 3 are subdivided into your bounce land, your utility lands, and your ramps. That's it. The deck is super linear with the exemption of sideboard. For now, I won't be discussing the sideboard. If you like, you can check out my Discord. That's where I talk about my sideboard plans. Let's proceed straight into the combo shortcuts. Now, how the Amulet Titan wins, as I said, is by damage. It's either by combat or non-combat. Let's talk about the complicated one first. Let's talk about combat. Now, the combat mechanics for Amulet Titan, its multiplier is done by the amulet count. In this combo sequence, it has 3 assumptions. Number 1, this is the first time you're casting your Primeval Titan. Number 2, because this is your first time casting your Primeval Titan, the land, therefore, that you played this turn is just enough to cast that Titan. That means that you don't have an extra land drop, okay? Number 3, you have the multiplier effect, which is in the form of Amulet. Now, what do I mean with multiplier effects? These are cards that you count in your hand that would equate to a specific damage. In this instance, it's Amulet of Vigor. Here's how the math works. 1 Vigor, Amulet of Vigor, is equals to 8 damage plus a preparatory for your next Titan. I'll explain that in a few. 2 Amulet of Vigor is equal to 20 damage. 3 Amulet Vigor in play is equals to 60 damage. And 4 Amulet Titans is equals to 80 combat damage. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about how we did it. The easiest combo, which is the first one Amulet count. So when a Primeval Titan comes into play, it searches your library for 2 lands and puts it into play tap. But because Amulet of Vigor says that whenever a permanent comes into play, untap it. So basically come in untapped. This is where we're generating value. Now, when your Primeval Titan comes into play, you search for something that makes it attack immediately so that you get another trigger. So for 1 Amulet, it gives target creature +2/+0, haste and vigilance, but you have to pay 1 red, 1 white. Luckily, we have Boros Garrison, which is a bounce land. That means that when it comes into play, you need to return a land from play to hand. However, they come in both at the same time. You stack the trigger where your Amulet of Vigor resolves first. They both untap. You produce mana on Boros Garrison first. Activate Slayer Stronghold ability. Target your Primeval Titan, so it gains haste and vigilance. And then you bounce the Slayer Stronghold back to hand. Alright, Now that's done, proceed to combat. Swing with your Primeval Titan. It triggers again its ability because it states that whenever this attacks, search your library for 2 lands again. This time, you would need to prepare for your next step because you can't deal too much damage with 1 Amulet Titan. What my combo is, or what my combo shortcut is, I usually play Get If Tolaria Wests and a Simic Growth Chamber. Boom. It doesn't matter if you float mana here or not because it's a combat step anyway. We don't have any fast effects during combat, so we'll leave it as is. The trick here is to actually bounce your Simic Growth Chamber and not your Tolaria West. The reason being is that you have the intention next turn to play your Simic Growth Chamber, stack it with the ability of Amulet of Vigor. You untap Simic Growth Chamber first, you float that mana alongside your Tolaria West. Then you can return Tolaria West to your hand, and then you can pay the cost to transmute. Transmute is you discard this card, you search your library for a converted mana cost equal to its converted mana cost of the card discarded. In this instance, it's 0. Therefore, you're gonna search for your Some Respect, which is 0. This sequence is what I call a preparatory sequence. That means that it ensures that next turn, you get to cast a Primeval Titan again. Alright, cool. That sets up your first Amulet count. Now let's do a second Amulet count. This time, this is where you can deal 20 damage. Let's see how it goes. So let's do the first sequence when Primeval comes into play. You will need to search both your Boros Garrison and your Slayer Stronghold. This is to give your Primeval Titan haste. Now this is how you do it. Since there are 2 amulets into play, their untap triggers actually stack. That means that you have an untap trigger from your first amulet and another untap trigger on your second amulet. You let your first amulet trigger resolves. This untaps both the land. Before your second amulet trigger resolves, you pump your Primeval Titan. It gets +2/+0, so it's now 8/6. Second amulet trigger resolves, untap, and you pump it again. Therefore, it's now a 10/6, right? You bounce a land because of the Boros Garrison. Remember to bounce your Slayer Stronghold because you would need your Boros Garrison. Okay, combat step. Your Titan now swings for 10 attack because it's Vigilance. It triggers its ability. This time you would actually search for your Vesuva and your Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. Now, the Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion, its ability is you may pay 1. First ability, tap to produce 1 colorless mana. Second ability, pay 4, which is 2 generic, 1 red and 1 white. And target creature gains double strike. I think you know where this is going. Sunhome comes into play, and Vesuva comes into play. Vesuva states that when it comes into play, you may copy a target land, but it comes to play tap. This time, you're going to copy Boros Garrison. Now, my deck composition, it doesn't have too many Boros Garrison. It only has 1 because we don't want it in our opening hand, and too many Boros Garrisons because we are essentially a green deck. We don't need too much white source, except when performing this combo. That's why we prefer Vesuva instead. It's more flexible. Flexibility and utility goes hand in hand, right? Now, Vesuva copies your Boros Garrison. Same thing with what happened a while ago. You stack your trigger for your Amulet of Vigor. You float mana from your Vesuva, which is a copy of your Boros Garrison now. You're floating 1 red, 1 white, and tap. And then your second Amulet triggers. You tap it again, 1 red, 1 white, and then activate your Sunhome, targeting your Primeval Titan. It gains double strike, and BAM! 20 damage out of nowhere. Cool, right? Now we get to the tricky part. 3 amulets. There are instances wherein our opponent may have gained more than 40 life. Maybe they're playing Boggles, right? Maybe they're playing Soul Sisters. Not to worry, 3 amulets can actually deal 60 damage, and this is how you do it. for if whatever reason you have drawn 3 amulets and you're able to cast a Primeval Titan, this is how you sequence so that you get 60 damage. First off, we get the Summoner's package, which is our previous preparatory package. However, because we have 3 Amulet of Vigors, the math changes drastically. So let me show you. You search for your preparatory pack, which is the Simic Growth Chamber and a Tolaria West. But because you have 3 amulets now, you can stack the untap trigger before the bounce. Therefore, you're gonna be floating 6 blue mana and 3 green mana. That's just enough to transmute your Tolaria West and find your Summoner's Pack to look for your second Primeval Titan. So, I'll just do a quick shortcut on the sequence. You stack it in a way wherein your Amulet of Vigor is stacked one over the other. The bounce trigger should be last. You bounce your Tolaria West so that you net 6 blue and then 3 green. You use the 3 blue to transmute for a Summoner's Pack, and then you search your second Primeval Titan. The remaining 6 mana, you cast your second Primeval Titan. In this Primeval Titan, you can now do the same thing so that you can search your third Primeval Titan. However, when your third Primeval Titan comes into play, you will now search for the Haste package, which is your Boros Garrison and your Slayer Stronghold. Now you could ask me, oh E, actually, you can sequence this again because we're playing 3 Tolaria West. You can search for your 4th Primeval Titan, alright? Now, you would be wondering why in this shortcut I'm not doing that. It's because it's inefficient to do so. Even if I search for the 4th Primeval Titan, it won't be able to attack and deal damage anyway. I would rather want to have that Primeval Titan as a preparatory Titan for my next turn in case this play doesn't go as planned. I think you know where this is going, right? So your Haste package would untap 3 times and you can give all 3 Titans +2/+0 and Haste. Alright, however, each one is 8/6. How did we get to 60? Alright, let me show you how we did it. But first, let me recap which ones we're going to bounce. We're going to bounce a Tolaria West. We're gonna bounce the second Tolaria West. However, on the third package, you need to bounce a different land, preferably the land that you used to cast your first Primeval Titan, so that both of these are in play, which is crucial for our next trigger. Okay, let's go to combat. Everyone attacks and everything triggers. Let me put things on the side that we already have used and is on the graveyard. Okay, now let me put aside things that we have put into play but are tapped. Now on our combat trigger, these are the land sequence that we will get. First, let's get a Celestia Sanctuary and a Valakut. The Valakut here is to produce red mana. So in this sequence, we're producing 9 mana, 3 of which are red, 3 of which are white, and 3 of which are green. Alright, then you can bounce your Valakut. On your second Primeval Titan trigger, you also do the same. You will net the same amount of mana. Just to recap, you are now floating 6 green, 6 white, and 6 red. And last but not least, the third Titan, which is the Clencher. We will still be searching for Vesuva and the Sunhome. However, for this instance, Vesuva will be copying our Slayer Stronghold. To activate Vesuva, which is your Slayer Stronghold, you need to have 6 mana, 3 of which are red and 3 of which are white. Okay? Now, your remaining mana pool is now 6 green, 3 white, and 3 red. I think you know where I'm going with this. The rest, you can pump it into Sunhome 3 times for each of your Titan. Now you've dealt 60 damage. Easy. Alright, and last but not least, let's talk about 4 amulets for 80 damage. Let me show you how we did it. Now we're in the last part of the combat combo shortcut. 4 amulets. If for whatever reason you achieved this specific godhood, you can actually deal 80 damage, and this is how you're going to sequence it. First, when you cast your Primeval Titan, you're going to search for the preparatory package. Now, in this instance, you can actually cast and transmute your land, Tolaria West, into a Titan. So, let's do that. when they all come into play, similar to what we did with combo 2 and 3, you can stack it up wherein all the 4 amulets actually resolves first in terms of triggers. You actually float 8 blue mana and 4 green mana. Alright? Use 3 of those blue mana to transmute and to Summoner's Pact. Once you have Summoner's Pact, you actually use the remaining mana to cast your second Primeval Titan, but this time make sure that you retain 3 blue mana, because all in all, you're actually going to spend 9 mana to recast a Primeval Titan, but because you have 3 or 4 Amulet of Vigor, you actually net 12 mana per this specific drop. So, simple math, 12 minus 9, 3. You have 3 blue. Now, on the next package, you need to find your Gruul Turf and your Tolaria West instead of your Simic Growth Chamber. Now, in this sequence, you actually are floating an additional 12 mana, 4 of which are blue, 4 of which are red, and 4 of which are green. Now, please use most of your green mana to cast your Primeval Titan and the blue mana to transmute for your Summoner's Pact. So, going back on the math, on the second trigger, you're going to use 3 of those mana to transmute your Tolaria West to find your Summoner's Pact. You're going to cast your Summoner's Pact, and you're going to use another 4 blue mana and 2 green mana to transmute or to cast your third Primeval Titan, which is this. This will leave you with 2 green mana, 4 red mana. That's it. Okay? On your third Primeval Titan, you need to search a Celestia Sanctuary and your last Tolaria West. Now, in this specific scenario, you are still going to net 12 mana in the form of 4 green, 4 blue, and 4 white. So we're going to preserve your red and white mana for this specific instance, okay? So use your 3 blue, transmute, and use all of your green to cast your 4th Primeval Titan. Boom. 4th Titan, okay? Now in your 4th Primeval Titan, I guess you know where this is going already. You don't have to find any bounce land. All you gotta find is a Slayer Stronghold and 1 other land, dealer's choice, whichever you like. You can go for a Castle Garen Brig, it wouldn't matter. We have already exhausted all our Tolaria Wests in this specific sequence, right? So it's not important what you're gonna search on the 4th land, except for the Slayer Stronghold. Now, because you have a residual mana, which are 4 red, 4 white, this untaps 4 times, please give all of your Titans haste and vigilance. Don't mind if I do. Now, let's clear the board with the things that already are in your graveyard, and I'm going to set aside which ones that are in play but are tapped. Now that you're on combat, you attack all of your Titans, each one triggers, or I'm gonna show you what you need to find. First, let's look at the first Primeval Titan. Now, you need white mana for this specific combo, so we need to go with a white mana, which is another Celestial Sanctuary, and you can pair it with any other land that is still on your library. So let's say a Crumbling Vestige or Crumbling Vestige, whichever you like. Now, the key thing here is that the Celestial Sanctuary must be searched. The second part, not so much. This one can be anything. Now, remember to float your mana before you bounce. You can bounce Crumbling Vestige so that it's ready for your next turn. In this instance, you're actually floating 12 mana again. The only critical color here is white, so we have 4 whites for this instance. And you have 8 any other color. The next one, your second Titan, you're gonna search for your Boros Garrison because we need another white source, right? And any other land. Let's say your Radiant Fountain. Again, do the same thing, float the mana. This time you have 8 white, 4 red, 4 green, and 8 colorless. Suspicious. That being said though, we only need to count the red and white mana because we only need 8 colorless mana, which obviously we have already fulfilled. Our third Titan search will search 2 Valakuts. Now these ones, they don't have to bounce anything, they just come into play, and this will suffice all of our red mana requirements. This in itself will float 8 additional red mana source, yielding you 12 red mana source and 8 white mana source. Right, these two are bounced, so you'll have these in play. Last but not least, you're gonna use Vesuva and a Sunhome. Your Vesuva will be copying your Slayer Stronghold. You'll use 8, 4 white, 4 red to repump all of your Titans, another +2/+0, making each and every one 10-6, and the remaining 16 on Sunhome, giving each and every one double strike. There you have it. Pow! 80 damage all in all. Cool. So, once this is bounced, this is the view of my combo shortcuts per amulet. Now let's proceed to the non-combat permutation. Combat shortcut, non-combat, Amulet Titan. It's very easy. For non-combat, the damage dealing factor would be Valakut. That's your multiplier. And this combo has 3 assumptions. Number 1, you're already online. That means that you have 5 other lands into play and you have Valakut. Number 2, you also have the Dryad of the Elysian Grove. That's it. Easy peasy. Now, let me show you what I mean. For this combo, it's going to be very simple. For each Valakut multiplier, your damage is multiplied by 3 per land drop. That's it. Number of lands times 3 times the number of Valakut in play. That's it. Simple. Straight up. So for each Valakut in play, if you play a land, that's 3 damage, right? My favorite combo with this specific scenario are bounce land, because you can bounce themselves. Even though there are no Amulet of Vigors in play, they still trigger the Valakut trigger if it is the 6th land into play. So this becomes 3 damage per land drop. This becomes 6 damage per land drop. And our third Valakut, which is we don't have a third Valakut but we do have a Vesuva, is 9 per land drop. Now, short math on my end, when I'm trying to do a combo, and if I'm trying to assess whether or not my damage is enough, mostly my maximum amount of land drops into play are 4 land drops. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 6 is 24. And 4 times 9 is 36. So usually I do 36 damage at one go because of Azusa. Easy. On special cases where you have other accelerators, your maximum damage now becomes plus 18 more. So that's 36 plus 18. Correct. 54 damage. Now, that means that out of nowhere, even if your opponent is sitting at 50 life, you can still deal damage. Coolness. All right. And as a bonus tip for this combat shortcut, I'm going to show you what a God hand looks like. Now, in the finale here that I showed a while ago, I actually was able to pull it off. Turn 2, Titan. Now, contrary to popular belief, the Titan deck can actually pull this off quite often than not, if uncontested or undisrupted, right? Because it only needs 6 cards, and some of those cards are interchangeable. First, let's start with the 2 cards that cannot be replaced, the fundamentals. You need to have 2 Amulet of Vigors. That's where it starts. When you see this in your opening hand, get excited. Second, you need to have your Primeval Titan. However, you can also have a Summoner's Pact, either or. That's your 3rd card. Next, you need to have a bounce land. But because the deck has a lot of bounce land, you have a lot of options. Any of these would do except for the Boros Garrison. Keep that in mind. Next, you need to have a land that doesn't come into play tapped or can produce a mana on turn 1, except for your Sunhome and your Slayer Stronghold. Those needs to be in the deck. These are your options. Any of these lands would do. Now the 6th card, last but not least, any ramp card except the Dryad. Alright, there you have it. So any of these cards in piles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are in your opening hand, you can win on turn 2. Let me demonstrate the sequence. For simplicity, let's just take any of these. Alright, Turn 1, you play your land. Since this one can produce a land on when it's played, produce green, cast your first Amulet of Vigor. Next turn, untap. Cast your second Amulet of Vigor. Use your first land drop to float mana. Simic Growth Chamber. This time, float it twice before it's bounced. You're now floating for 4 mana. 2 blue, 2 green. Goes back to hand. And use that 1 mana to cast Arboreal Grazer. Replay your Simic Growth Chamber because you now have 7 mana floating. Can bounce this back to your hand, Crumbling Vistage. Then cast Primeval Titan. Now you have 1 mana remaining on the pool. So that's why you can use either your Explore or Azusa because you can play another additional land drop. Now, from this sequence, just refer to combat shortcut number 2. 2 amulets in play. 20 damage. Easy peasy. There you have it. I have saved some stills from this footage so I can save it on the gram. So if you want to reference back any of those combo shortcuts, especially the combat shortcuts, please feel free to do so. Follow your boy on the gram. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. As always, stay safe. Alright?